What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Coast to Coast. I'm your host, Liam Willerup, and today we're going to be diving into the Denver Nuggets. After losing in 7 games in the Western Conference semifinals to the Oklahoma City Thunder, at the end of the day, the Nuggets might have been the toughest challenge OKC will have faced throughout these playoffs, assuming that they make it to the NBA Finals and take care of business in the Western Conference Finals. Regardless, there's some glaring issues on this Denver roster, and there's subpar play from guys like Michael Porter Jr. and Russell Westbrook during that second round series. While they don't need me to make so many changes as to trading off guys like Jamal Murray, I think there are some moves that they can make to better position themselves depth-wise and player fit-wise going forward on this roster to try and compete for a championship in 2026, still having arguably the best player in the NBA. Make sure to subscribe for more content like this and comment down below what you think of the moves I suggest in this video. So let's hop straight into them. For the first trade proposal of this episode, I'm calling up the Brooklyn Nets, offering Michael Porter Jr. straight up for Cameron Johnson and the 27th overall pick in the 2025 NBA Draft. So first and foremost, why does this make sense for Denver? Well, it's going to shed a significant amount of salary cap, which is going to open up moves for free agent acquisitions we'll talk about Denver later in this video. Looking at the contract situations, Michael Porter Jr. has 2 years, $79 million remaining, while Cameron Johnson is at 2 years, $43 million remaining. And Brooklyn is one of the few teams in the NBA that can even take on a salary cap like this. Additionally, while Johnson is a worse offensive player, he is a better defensive fit and was still 39% from 3 last year, shooting more attempts than Michael Porter Jr., who shot a similar rate. Additionally, Denver has been successful with first-round draft selections, and using that 27th overall pick, I think they could look to add more depth at the wing position. Then, looking at this deal for Brooklyn, why would this make sense? Well, Michael Porter Jr. is still 2 years younger than Cam Johnson and has been far more available than him, despite the fact that many think that MPJ isn't an available guy, given that he had injury troubles this playoffs and entered the league with injury problems. However, he's played 77 or more games in the past 2 seasons. Additionally, I think in a system like Brooklyn where he'd have a little bit more freedom playing alongside Cam Thomas, he could be unlocked to be a consistent 20-point per game scorer who's shown he can be efficient when scoring at a high volume in Denver. For my second trade proposal of this video, I'm calling up the Philadelphia 76ers, offering Zeke Naji in his 3 years, $23 million remaining, Dario Saric in his 1 year, $5.4 million, and the 2031 first unprotected via Denver in exchange for a sign-and-trade deal to acquire Quentin Grimes on a 3-year, $42 million contract. So why does this make sense for Denver? Well, you're adding another wing guy in Quentin Grimes on a low price. Obviously, giving up that 2031 first isn't ideal, but you got to be able to go all in when you have a guy like Nikola Jokic on your roster, and you don't know how much longer all the rest of the guys in that roster are going to be around, such as Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon, and there's no telling what the future looks like. Getting a guy like Grimes, who was a 22-point-per-game scorer after the All-Star break, would be a great deal. As for Philadelphia, I think this deal makes sense. While you're taking in Zeke Naji's contract that isn't ideal, you're acquiring the 2031 first via Denver, which could be a very valuable pick, assuming that by that time, Jokic might be off Denver's roster. And given that their roster is more configured towards the future with the 3rd overall pick and guys like Jared McCain and Tyrese Maxey on the roster, I think it makes sense to look forward thinking instead of this era with Joel Embiid and Paul George. Now, with a little bit more cap space to work with, I think Denver should head into the offseason looking to add 2 guys in free agency to add to the rotation to improve that, given that their depth was a problem that Nikola Jokic identified after their loss to the OKC Thunder. Therefore, the guy at the top of the list that makes the most sense to me is Bruce Brown. He was already there in 2023 when they won the NBA championship over the Miami Heat, and he was a crucial part to that playoff run, averaging double-digit points per game and being that combo versatile guard that they really needed, that could play alongside Jamal Murray or as the backup point guard on the roster. Then, looking down the list, while guys like Dante Exum and Taurean Prince are intriguing, I think we have proper depth at those positions with guys like Julian Strother, Christian Braun, and now bringing in Quentin Grimes and Cam Johnson via those mock trades. Therefore, I'm going to identify Chris Boucher as the other option I think Denver should bring in, given he was already rumored as a potential target during the trade deadline for Denver, and now a guy that's averaging 10 points per game, shooting 36.3% from three. I think he'd pair well as a backup to Nikola Jokic to be able to give them some confident center minutes and not have to worry on guys like Zeke Naji or even DeAndre Jordan, which they did at times this season. Looking ahead to the 2025-26 season for Denver, a player on their roster currently that I want to see step up is their 2024 first-round pick in Dron Holmes. After trading up the rights to Ryan Dunn and 3 second-round picks for him, I think that Denver really needs to see some production out of Holmes next year, assuming that he's healthy. While the summer league under his belt should give him a boost, he was fantastic in his final season at Dayton last time we saw him play basketball, averaging 20.4 points per game, 2.1 blocks per game, and shooting 38.6% from three. A second-team All-American in that season, Holmes has the ability to not only pop for shots on the outside as the pick-and-roll man, but also rolls to the basket as well. And with that modern big style that he can be, I think he'd be a perfect fit for Denver in those non-Jokic minutes. Additionally, I think he can learn a lot from Jokic, having that kind of skill set where he can step out and hit the outside shot. And if he can turn into a real rotation piece for Denver, especially alongside the acquisitions that I mentioned already in this video, I think it could be a really dangerous rotation for Denver and given the proper depth that they need to compete in the Western Conference. Now, after all these moves that I've suggested in this video, here's a look at what the potential 2025-26 depth chart for the Denver Nuggets would look like. At point guard, it's going to stay the same with Jamal Murray at the top, but at the backup, you got Bruce Brown, and you still got Jalen Pickett, who was impressive during his time this year where he saw action. Looking at the shooting guard position, it's going to stay pretty much the same with Christian Braun and Julian Strawther, but I do expect Strawther to take a bigger role in this team. Looking at the small forward position, it's a complete overhaul with Cameron Johnson and Quentin Grimes there. Interchangeably, I think you could start one or bench the other. Depends on what the fit works best with the team. Looking at the power forward position, that's going to stay the same. Look at the shooting guard position with Aaron Gordon at the starter, Peyton Watson, who I expect to continue to be that defensive threat, at Hunter Tyson. Then at the center position, Nikola Jokic, of course, the star man of the team at the top, with Chris Boucher, the offseason acquisition at free agency, and Dron Holmes, who I think could even pass up Boucher, which would probably make more sense to sign Boucher to a one-year deal in that situation if you have faith that Holmes can be that guy. Otherwise, make sure to comment down below what you think of my moves, what other suggestions you would have for the Denver Nuggets going in the next season if they want to be able to compete with the likes of the Oklahoma City Thunder, Minnesota Timberwolves, and so forth. Thanks for listening, and take care. Cheers.